guys for having me. It was a very nice intro. Catherine, thank you. I was just joking about, I don't know if you even overheard us talking just now, but Nick, who works for us at the South Bay location, he's the one who got us in touch and kind of made this whole thing happen. And for whatever reason, when we first talked, like, I thought he said his sister. So the entire time, I thought I was meeting Nick's sister, and luckily, like, as I was walking out, I was like, hey, he's like, hey, good luck, you're gonna go do your talk tonight, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I was like, hey, I'll say hi to your sister for you. He's like, it's not my sister, bro. But anyways, I don't know, and I've been talking to a handful of you guys, for the last 20 minutes or so. I don't know exactly how your guys' structure normally works, but I'm up for, I'm going to tell you my backstory and kind of give you a whole rundown and, kind of some finer points on kind of what I think are some things that you guys can hopefully take away from this. But at the end of the day, and one of the things I'm going to try to get across is how important, like, just value is, period. Like, when you guys start whatever venture it is that you guys get into here, providing value is like the number one thing that you guys need to be doing. And so what I want to do with this talk today is, I'm going to talk about a few things, but I really want to open up the floor and allow you guys to ask as many questions and just honestly feel free to interact, because that way you guys walk away with what you guys want to walk away with. So with that being said, I'll give you guys a little bit of a backstory on me and kind of how I always got started. Catherine sent over a handful of questions that I'll touch on to make sure I hit those points. But bottom line is first and foremost, I'm standing before you, owning a couple of gyms, but to say that I didn't know what I was gonna do, like in college when, in your guys' seats, would be like a vast understatement. Like, too busy, like, drinking, partying, having a good time, like, like, school at that point was, a means to an end, but I had no idea, that I wanted to even be in fitness at that point. I mean, I'd always had like a business kind of a mindset, and I always enjoyed like numbers and finance and things like that, but never really knew what to do with it. So I guess the first thing I would say to you guys is, like, if you guys are sitting here and you guys still don't know, like, damn, there's plenty of time. You know what I mean? How I fell into this is kind of random. So I was going to school. I went to the University of Arizona and majored in sociology, which has nothing to do with business whatsoever. And came home one summer, and my dad, who was a police officer, he used to do a lot of bodyguarding type stuff for like movie producers and whatnot. Anyways, that guy's personal trainer and my dad became friends. They ended up moving close to each other, so we would go over for barbecues and whatnot. And I remember coming home one day from school, or one Thanksgiving or whatever, and going over to their house and just kind of asking them questions, because I'd always worked out and played sports and done all that stuff. So I was trying to look to get an edge up on my workouts. So I said, hey, do you have any tips or anything like that, anything to kind of spice up my workouts when I go back to school? And the guy said, yeah, why don't you come over for a workout one afternoon? So I went over there and never had my ass handed to me worse in my entire life. And I'll never forget, the irony of it all is that I remember, because it was walking distance from my dad's house, and I remember walking home from his house and thinking to myself, people pay for this shit? And so I got back home, and he asked me, like, maybe a week or so later, this trainer guy that my dad knew, have you ever thought about getting into fitness as a profession? This guy was really successful, worked with a lot of high-end clientele. And I said, no, but what the hell, I'll get my personal training certification and just give it a whirl, right? Go back to school, graduate, come back, still don't know what I want to do, but figure, hey, I'll get into fitness, do this personal training thing, and just kind of see what comes of it, and we'll see how things play out. Ends up going pretty well. So the story goes, and really, I just kind of found like a knack within, like, I enjoyed the personal training aspect, and I enjoyed the fitness aspect, and I enjoyed like the seeing, like myself, like making a difference, I guess, in people's lives. But if I'm being 100% honest, the thing that I really, really, really dug was the business aspect. And as I started to grow my business on my own, I got to a point where, and I was talking to these guys as we were walking up, it was, I couldn't work any more hours. You know, I was working, you know, training, give or take 60 hours a week. And I got to a point where I was kind of at my ceiling, you know, maybe 3 or 4 years, not even that long, probably 3 years into personal training. My ceiling in terms of like, I couldn't really work any more hours. Where I was training, the city I was training in, Valencia, like, I couldn't really charge any more than I was per hour. So I was kind of at a cap. And I've always kind of had the mindset that like, I don't ever want to just be satisfied or stop or, you know what I mean, just become complacent with what I'm doing. And so it was one of those things where you're just like, all right, well, I got 2 options. I can move and try to restart up in a neighborhood or a city where I can charge more, or do kind of what I've always kind of wanted to do in the back of my mind, which is open up a business. And I'd saved up a decent amount of money over the past, 3 years that I'd been training, and it was like, it's all or nothing. And I'll tell you this right now, I was scared, and I hope you guys don't mind if I curse, because I will be doing that on occasion. I was scared as shit, like super scared as shit, right? Like, I mean, here I'm gonna invest every dime I've saved over the past few years, and I could fail. I could lose, and I could have to start all over. And it was weird. I'll never forget one day, it went from fear and, I don't know if doubt is the right word, but there was some doubt, obviously, to just all of a sudden waking up one morning and there just being like this overwhelming confidence. And I don't know what it was. I wish I could sit here in front of you guys today and say like, hey, this is what happened, this is what I did, and all of a sudden the light just switched. But I can't. All I know is I woke up and there was this confidence about it, and I was like, that's it, I'm going for it, I'm doing it. And again, the rest is history. Here we are, opened up that first location in 2011, opened up the second location in 2015, and working on opening up our third location right now. We expanded our very first location that was roughly 10,000 square feet when we first opened. We expanded to 14,000 square feet, then again to 17,000 square feet, and then again to 25,000 square feet. Our location in Manhattan Beach is around 18. But the bottom line is it's been just, steady growth and progression the entire time. And obviously, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I was telling these guys in the beginning, like, to say that there was hard work in the beginning would be like the biggest understatement of my life. Of my life. And like now, like I almost like it's easy. Like it's not, like I still work my ass off, don't get me wrong. But when I look back and I think about how much my face was like in the dirt, like every single day for the first 18 to 24 months, like it kind of blows my mind like how much I was actually doing. And so one of the other things that like I obviously hope to kind of get across here is like, I know, and I know you guys see it all the time, like on social media, you see all this, like hashtag hustle this, and you know what I mean, and wake up Monday, and just so much of it is bullshit. Like so many people like hashtag this, entrepreneur, and hashtag hustle, and like it's so much bullshit, it drives me crazy. Like I would say that 90% of those people don't know what the fuck hard work is. And it's just kind of like it's become cool, you know what I mean, to be an entrepreneur. And there's nothing wrong with it, like, as long as you understand what it's about, and you understand the work, that to actually not just be like the entrepreneur that is like jobless, that says they're an entrepreneur, you know what I mean? But like a legitimate one that like, it's like the whole, the other stuff you see on social media with people talking about, do this and you can have all this like residual income that just comes piling in, and just, buy into whatever this product is, and you can live on the beach and do all this, right? Like that shit's, it's fantasy, it's bullshit, it doesn't exist. Like one thing exists in success, and that is absolute hard work. And they're just selling you a fairy tale. And so one of the things that I at least enjoy talking about is like the real aspect of it. Like, yeah, there's some good things, obviously, right? Like to say that like I'm not motivated by money, I would be 100% lying to every single one of you. Of course I'm motivated by money. Of course I want to go on those vacations. But the vacations aren't what I live for. Like that day-to-day grind, like the chase is what I live for. Like that is what gets me up every morning. If what gets you up every morning is Saturday and Sunday, or the vacation that you're gonna take a month from now or 2 months from now, if that's what gets you up every morning, it's just gonna die off real quick. Like you just won't last. And so, like, A, understanding that, A, loving that, like enjoying like a little bit of like your face in the dirt, you know what I mean? And that grind, like that is what will separate like the winners from the losers, basically, when it comes to entrepreneurs. And so, like, I guess if there's like one like main thing that I could hopefully have you guys take away from this is just that. And I think there's a lot to, the other thing I'm doing right now is I'm in the midst of writing a book. And one of the main things that I talk about in the book is obviously like that willingness and ability to be able to like be punched in the mouth and like keep coming back. You know what I mean? Like one of the questions I think you asked here is, was there ever a time you experienced a major setback or failure where you questioned your goal, and how did you overcome it? Like, I mean, granted, hopefully the mistakes are small. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to make like a massive, mistake and go under, but fucking every day. Like, I make mistakes every single day. And like, mistakes, I just think people get like over, like they let like the idea of like having a mistake, and they just put too much weight like on that one mess up. Like, you're gonna mess up 100 times over. It just is. And I'd rather fail and mess up than never attempt it at all. I know I'm talking a lot and I'm blabbing. I want to give you 2 stories that I think helped shape who I am. And I didn't think they were that big of a deal, but I remember telling them to somebody else, and he was kind of like, holy shit, that's kind of powerful, that's kind of cool, like I never thought about it. Anyways, I'm sitting down with my buddy Robert, and we're kind of just bullshitting and talking, and I think he asked me if there was anything that inspired or motivated me at some point in my life. And so there's 2 things. One thing, I played baseball growing up as a kid and in high school and whatnot. And prior to high school, I played football too. And when it came to signing up for football freshman year of high school, I decided, hey, you know what? I'm not going to play my freshman year. I'll play my sophomore year. I was like literally like I remember vividly being in like wherever you sign up, like for high school football, ready to sign the paperwork, and having a conversation with my dad off to the side about how, like, I mean, anyone who's played football here knows that your summers are gone. You know what I mean? Like, you're practicing all summer long. And I was like, you know what? I just want to go to Havasu. I want to go to, wherever the heck it is we went when I was in high school for summer. And I was like, I just want to have a summer. And so I didn't play my freshman year. Sophomore year came. Well, at this point, I'm going to focus on baseball because I was playing baseball. Didn't play my sophomore year. And obviously, at that point, just never ended up playing in high school. As stupid as it sounds, that has, like, stayed with me, like, to this day. Like, regretting not playing football in high school. And that, again, I'm sure that sounds dumb to a lot of people in here. But if you have something that you regret, right? Whether it's big, whether it's small, like, the point is that, like, regret will eat at you for the rest of your life. And so, never give yourself an opportunity to have regret. Like, take that chance, you know what I mean? Because there's no going back with regret. And so that story, and so that is part of what is, like, anytime I have an opportunity for something, like nowadays, like, I jump on it. Because I'm not going to feel that again. No matter how big or how small, I'm not going to feel that regret again. The other story is my dad. Dad was a cop. You know what I mean? Didn't make a bajillion dollars a year, but it's not like we were broke either. We were like your average blue-collar family. Parents got divorced early when I was growing up. And I'll never forget, like, you know, divorce, like most divorces, like, you know what I mean? It's not that they kind of hated each other, but the parting wasn't exactly amicable with my folks. And so from a financial standpoint, it stressed the entire family, as most divorces do. And I'll never forget, like, my dad was, being a cop, and, he's kind of a bit of a hard ass, and, just kind of like a guy's guy. Probably never saw him cry in my entire life, except one time. Saw him cry when, I forget how old I was, call it junior high, 6th grade, somewhere around there. Christmas came, and it was the Christmas right as the divorce was, like, in the trenches. And he couldn't afford to buy us Christmas presents. And he cried. And he was like, and obviously at that point, I knew there was no Santa, so it's not like he had to hide anything, but I remember him coming to me and crying and saying how he couldn't afford Christmas presents and how he was sorry and this and that. And it was those two things. And not wanting to feel regret ever again, and the desire I never want to be in my dad's shoes. If the day comes when I have kids, I want to be financially stable enough that if that ever happens, a divorce or whatever, I never have to look at my kids and feel the way I'm sure he felt that day. And those two things are two of the biggest driving forces that I have in that day-to-day thing, so that I don't have to ever feel those two things again. So, that is, get that out of the way. That's my story for the most part. Let's talk about some business stuff. I'm going to go through a couple of the questions here. And like I said, as I talk, guys, feel free to kind of chime in at any time. So one of the questions here is, what was Afterwards Fitness' original mission, and how has that mission evolved in the time since? And just like I said, I made 1,000 mistakes and I make them every single day. Like, it has evolved 100 times over. Like, all the time. Don't fill out the right side of the comment sheet. It has evolved constantly. And my thing to you guys would be is, it's evolved constantly because it wasn't perfect. It's still not perfect. It'll never be perfect. And so when you guys start, whatever venture it is that you're going to start, right? Like, just know that it doesn't have to be perfect when you start. Like, if you're waiting for it to be perfect, you're going to be waiting a really fucking long time, and you're just never going to pull the trigger. Pull the trigger and figure it out as you go. Like, just do it. Just jump in there, jump in the dirt, get messy, get dirty, and just go. Because that's what we did. If any of you guys remembers day one and you guys remembers now, I mean, to say that it would be two starkly different things, again, would be a massive understatement. So just start. With that being said, whatever it is that you start, I think there's 3 things that are massively important in any business venture: sales, culture, and systems. And sales is kind of duh. Without sales, you have no business. So I don't care if your culture is the greatest thing in the world, or you think you have the greatest product. If you don't have sales, you don't have revenue coming in, that is your lifeblood. You have to have sales. 2 is culture. I think culture is huge. And 3 is systems. You can have a small business without systems, something that you are overseeing maybe every aspect of it, but if you have any intentions or plans on growing and expanding, systems or not having systems will kill your business. And it's probably one of the things that I'm focusing on the most here as we grow and expand, is making sure we have those systems in place. But I want to talk, and I'll talk about each of them for a second here, but I want to talk about sales first. Because I think there is a massive, especially in the fitness realm, but I think it applies everywhere, there's a massive misconception with sales. And I think a lot of people are nervous about sales. How many people in here, just so I know, have ever been in sales? Like you've done some sort of a sales job. So a handful of you. I would assume that those who have been it are at least semi-comfortable. But if you're not, still raise your hand. How many in here, whether you've been in sales before or you haven't, are kind of uncomfortable with sales? Like if I told you to, hey, walk up to that person and sell them X, like that aspect would make you semi-uncomfortable. Pretty decent amount, right? And this is super normal. And it's even more normal in the fitness industry, especially when it comes to trainers. Like trainers are like, well, that's not my thing. Like I'm just a trainer, and I make people, I make them healthy, and I make their muscles big or whatever it is, right? And they're okay with either not being good at sales or at the best being mediocre at sales. And I think that if you're okay with being okay or average at sales, then you're simply telling yourself you're okay with being mediocre at life. And that's because the misconception with sales is this. Sales isn't and doesn't have to be and shouldn't be, that was 3 things, but I put 2 fingers up. It's not some used car sales bullshit. It's not. Which is what we have in our mind. Like we think of sales and we think like, all right, I gotta go up, I gotta hard sell this guy on whatever it is, right? Let me tell you what sales is. Sales is people skills, it's eye contact, it's a firm handshake, it's follow through, it's smiling, it's communicating. That's what sales is. There is not one person on this planet who is exceptional at sales does not have all of those things together. Yeah, sure, there's some sleazeballs mixed in. But don't let the few cloud your vision of what sales actually is. And so when I say that, being okay with being mediocre at sales means you're going to be mediocre at life, it's kind of true. Because is there anybody in here that would argue with me to say that having good people skills, having a firm handshake and eye contact and all of those things and follow through and being on time and all of that stuff is a bad thing? It's not. I don't care what you do for your profession. Those aspects are going to help you in everything in life. And so the only thing, and that's what I try to get across to them all the time, like you don't have to go up and Wolf of Wall Street sell this guy right now on a training pack. What you need to do is build a relationship with this individual. That's what sales is. Sales is building a relationship with another individual in a short amount of time. Finding something that you connect with, that you can communicate across to them, and then the result of that interaction is a sale. And so, if you guys can take that away, that'll help you in everything. Culture is number 2. Especially in this day and age, I think if you don't have culture in your business, then you don't have anything that incentivizes the people that help build your brand or build your company. There's nothing to incentivize them or make them want to come to work every day. I mean, let's be real, like you guys know, no different than a fraternity, right? We want to be a part of something as people, as humans. Like that's just in our nature. We don't want to be isolated. We want to be a part of something. And so culture, being a part of whatever it is that you're building, like no one wants to punch a fucking clock every day. Who wants to come in there with a time card? Anybody in here? Raise your hand if you do. And click, put your thing in, go to work, and be a robot every day. Nobody does. And so creating an environment where people understand that they actually have a helping hand in creating what it is that you're creating. Like I always say all the time, yeah, I may have been the one that started Afterburn, right? But I would be an absolute fool if I were to sit here and look every single one of you guys in the eyes and say that like it is what it is just because of me. It's not. It's because of all the other teammates and all the other managers and all the other trainers and front desk staff and everybody else. And I make sure that I get that message across to them every single day, because without everybody going for the same goal and being a part of it and knowing that they have a part in helping create that, like, you have nothing. And then lastly is systems. Like I said, systems are boring as shit, so I'm not going to talk about it. But just know they're boring as shit, but they're important as shit. So I will end with that, because that's a good ending. Anytime you curse is a good spot to stop. But honestly, at this point, so I don't chew your ear off blindly for another 30 minutes, to be honest, I want to open it up to questions right now, so that you guys can kind of, get stuff answered that you want. So if you guys have questions, shoot them. Yes, sir.
You mentioned at the start of your presentation that it's essential to have value in whatever it is that you're doing in business. So how is it that you kind of integrate that value into sales and culture when you're trying to help your employees understand that what they're selling isn't, they're not selling a used car. They can really get on board with these are services that people will really benefit from. Is that something that you teach, or is it something that you think them being a part of Afterburn, they just know it and they can kind of feel it and sell that to the people that they're talking to?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, you're just asking, are you asking simply because how our staff gets that message of value across without having something tangible because of the service industry? Is that what you're asking?
It's more, do you think they already understand that value and it makes it easier for them to sell, or do you kind of have to help them, guide them along with understanding that you guys have this value and that's why you should pitch it? Is that part of something you teach, or do they kind of understand that value? Do they feel like it's a sales gig, or do they feel like it's really like, this is what we are, this is what we're about, and it can help you?
And I think it's the latter.
Okay.
I think it's purely that. And I think that's why, and I'm hoping I'm answering your question right, that's why I believe culture is so important. Because, to give you an example, a long time ago, I used to sell cell phones for AT&T, like right out of high school, like between, like, I think when I just graduated high school. And God, I hated their phones. They were so ugly. Like, remember those big, like, Nokia ones? Or was that before? That's probably before you guys' time. I'm dating myself right now. But anyways, I hated them. I hated the look of them. I didn't believe in the product. And I was only selling them because it was a sales gig. And even the person next to me who was my buddy, who sold Sprint phones, who liked the phones because their phones were way cooler looking, it was still simply like, I'm just simply selling you a product because it's a sales gig. Versus, like, wholeheartedly in my gut, like, believing in the product, what the company was about, and everything. And so, yes, it is not just a sales gig. It is something that we try to, like, make them feel, like, in their bones, that what they're doing is about helping people and that they're about building this thing. And to me, it starts with the interview. I think the other big error on managers and companies and all of them is that you come in for an interview with Afterburn, right? You sit down, you're like, hey, I'm looking to be a trainer, and I'm like, and I ask you all these questions. What certifications do you have? And you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna put you in a scenario, and what would you do with this, or what would you do with that, right? Well, aside from you just wanting to get a job, I mean, how does that, like, what have I done to make you feel like you actually want to work for this company? And I think interviews are a two-way street. Yeah, you're coming in for a job, but you're interviewing me too. You're interviewing Afterburn. And so there's an aspect of when we do interviews of us almost selling ourselves back to you. Just like you would be selling yourself to us to get hired, we're selling ourselves back to you to show you that, yeah, there's a paycheck involved, but B, it goes beyond that. That it goes into the culture aspect, and there's 20 other things that go into, you know, who we are and what we do. And so that when we do sign the paperwork and you do come on, that from day one, there's a feeling of like, all right, like I'm a part of something bigger than just a paycheck. Somebody else had their hand up. Yes, sir.
So I feel like the gym business is competitive because they're like...
Is competitive?
Yeah. And there's like LA Fitness and 24 hours for fitness. So how did you get into such a competitive market at the beginning?
So, and you're right, the gym industry is super competitive. Actually, in Valencia, for whatever reason, like I was telling a couple of guys on the way up here, like on a per capita basis, it's actually one of the most densely populated gym or cities with gyms in it, like in the country. It's kind of crazy, and especially, and these aren't all massive gyms. They're not all big LA Fitnesses and Bay Clubs and Equinoxes and things like that. Like, this is talking about, your boutique gyms and, your cycle studios and things like that. But at the end of the day, call it a good thing or a bad thing, but our niche is kind of that hybrid. And so you have, in my opinion, a few distinct categories. You have your boutique gyms. You have in my opinion, there's really only like 3-ish right now. And in that boutique category, I would put everything from like your Barry's boot camps to your CrossFits to, anything that's like a smaller, like sub 5,000 square feet, more expensive, over $100, or a pay-per-class option. Then you have your dirt cheap, right? Your $10, $20 a month, Planet Fitness, LA Fitness would probably fall in that category. They're a little bit more expensive, $30, $40, but something sub 50, right? And then you have your expensive options. Again, over 100, but still big box. You're talking about Equinox, Bay Club. Spectrum used to be around. You guys remember Spectrum? They got bought out by Bay Club. And actually, I think the reason why Spectrum failed is they fell into that middle category. They tried to be exclusive and expensive, but instead of going, $129, $149, $169, they fell into this like $79. So they're not really elite. They don't have that status. Like if you're a member of Equinox, like there's a little bit of sense of pride and a sense of, that same shit we're talking about with culture, right? Like wanting to be a part of something and be associated with something. It's why people have country club memberships and all of that. Like there's a positive stigma that's associated with having that membership. Spectrum never got that because they fell into that middle ground, and you can't fall into that middle ground when it comes to from a finance standpoint. And so, anyways, so long story short, you got your big box, you got your boutique, and so we wanted to create something where our main competition in the beginning was the boutiques, right? The CrossFits and stuff like that. But we wanted to be more. We wanted to do something where you didn't have to have multiple gym memberships. Because right now, whether you cycle at Soul Cycle, or you go to Barry's Boot Camp, or you go to a CrossFit, or whatever else it is that you work out in that type of setting, like if you want to go do something on your own, like, hey, I don't want to go to class today. I just want to go on my own and hop on the treadmill, or I just want to go lift, or whatever it is, but just solo with my headphones on. Like you can't unless you get another gym membership, unless you also get a 24-hour or an LA Fitness or whatever. And so we wanted to be that blend, that hybrid of, we have the best trainers in the industry, we have classes that are better than, or at least on par with every single one of those like super high-end boutique gyms that are just purely class-based. But they also have the open gym. We also have nice locker rooms. And you know what I mean? And we have all of those like upper end, upscale like amenities and open gym area blended with the best classes in the industry. And so now you don't have to have 2 gym memberships anymore. And that was kind of our shtick to kind of find like our home base. And so that's kind of how we have competed in a market that is so, overcrowded basically. Is we've kind of created our own segment of the market.
Was there ever a hardship when you were first starting out with Afterburn, and how did you manage to get past that hardship?
Well, like I was saying earlier, thank God there wasn't like a massive hardship. But mistakes, hardships all the time. I mean, I remember when we first opened, and again, like I talked about how, how much it's changed since then. Again, remember, you guys got a leg up on me. I wasn't coming from someone who was in a business fraternity or had a business background. I was super into, the one good thing, I've always been good at math. I've always really dug finances and markets and economics and that kind of thing. And so I had that side going for me. But other than that, there was no real business experience. So it was just like a lot of trial and error. Fuck, that didn't work. Gotta try something else. You know what I mean? And so I remember in the beginning, there were times bank accounts were low. Bank accounts were super low. And it's weird. And that kind of goes with what I was saying earlier about the getting punched in the mouth. And when your back's, that's the biggest test, is putting your back against the wall. You're gonna see how hard you're gonna fight. I almost feel like sometimes if you don't risk enough, it's too easy. If you don't have enough to lose, right? It's too easy to just kind of throw in the towel. Where when your back's up against the wall and everything you've risked, right, is on the table, if you can't get your membership up to X or whatever it is, right? I guarantee you, put yourself in that situation and you start finding ways to win. And so a specific hardship, I can't say. I can just say shit didn't always go the way as planned in the beginning. But when you put your back against the wall, I think you'd be surprised to find out kind of what you're willing to do and how hard you're willing to fight to make sure that it comes out right on the other end. Yes?
Were there any notable skills or pieces of knowledge that you took away from your sociology major that have really shown through in your business endeavors?
Oh boy. You're not a sociology major, are you?
No.
My immediate response would be no. If it's something that I could actually think that, okay, hey, I learned that and I know that helped me. I think it would be, obviously where, you guys are in a business fraternity and there's obviously very specific things that tangible things that you can take away and implement. The only thing that I can kind of say, is that there could have been either subconscious learning when it came to just social skills in general, and learning kind of how people work, which I think is, and I already mentioned it, how important people skills are. One of the things that helped me tremendously as a trainer before I even got into the gym business itself was I always prided myself in the ability to be a chameleon. So if I had, client A that was a guy that was, maybe he owned his own business versus client B who was a house mom versus client C who, could maybe barely make ends meet to pay for this training, whatever it was, or whatever their goals were, the way I communicated with them, the way I interacted with them, the way I spoke to them, it was all different. And being able to be dynamic in those situations, and really developing people skills and understanding how people work, I think that probably has helped me. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I know you mentioned one of your biggest driving factors is not to feel regret again.
Uh-huh.
But anything that you would do over in your life, like any regrets with your business?
Probably not. And the reason I say that is because, like, if I would have done something different, like it's just the unknown. Like if I would have done something different, like would it have changed the outcome of this? And because of that, like I just wouldn't change anything. Like I wouldn't change the losses, I wouldn't change the hardships. You know what I mean? I just think all of those, that's actually one of the questions here. I think it's, what was it? Well, it's kind of, what do you know today that you wish you would have known when you first got started? And it's weird, like, half of me wants to say that I wish I would have had this, like, unreal, like, entrepreneurial mentor that, like, was, like, this big business dude who was like, here's the fucking blueprint, just follow it. When I could have just jumped out the gate, you know what I mean, and had no hardships and just, you know what I mean, just rode it. And the other half of me says that would have been no fun. That nose to the grindstone and getting dirty and learning and making mistakes. Yeah, I started off slower than if someone would have handed me that blueprint. But like, I think the long-term game that I'm playing, like I think I'm gonna benefit more because I had to get a little bit dirtier in the beginning. Anything else?
There's one thing you could tell yourself as a 20-year-old college student with no idea what he wants to do in the future. What would you be?
You asking for a friend? Do what you love. Like, back to kind of what I was saying about this, like, passion versus emotion and, you know, being able to get punched in the mouth and keep going and all that stuff. Like, and I'm not saying for me it's fitness. I'm saying for me, like, it's that business aspect that I absolutely love. Like I almost get like a little bit excited, like, don't get me wrong, I like to win way more than I like to lose. I fucking hate losing. But losing gets me pumped up to win again. Like it makes me mad and it makes me immediately want to fix whatever it is to go. But to answer your question, there's only one thing that's going to keep you going when your face is in the dirt, when you're getting punched in the mouth, when you go through those hardships, right, in the beginning, is if you like, not just like, but if you love what you're doing. If you don't, you will quit. I guarantee that. If you don't love what you're doing, like we're talking about, the day-to-day grind, not the vacation, what you're doing, do what you love, because if you don't, you'll throw in the towel. It's too hard because, or it's too easy to throw in the towel because doing what we're doing from an entrepreneurial state of mind, like, it's hard, man. It ain't easy. Like, that's a big question that I forgot to touch on. No, I'm serious.
You missed a lot of
I
those.
missed a lot of this question. I was just blabbing for too long. How many college students are deterred from pursuing their entrepreneurial dreams by their families? Have you experienced this when you were an aspiring entrepreneur, and how did you overcome this? Fortunately, no. Did I have some doubts within my family, my folks? Of course. Especially when not even so much the first one. I think with the first one, there was a lot of like, hoorah, like, good job, like, best of luck, that kind of thing. Second one, they were like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Like, aren't you satisfied? Aren't you happy? Why are you going to risk it again? Like, you won. Like, take your victory lap and call it a day. And I was like, I haven't won yet. You know what I mean? LeBron James isn't satisfied with one title. You know what I mean? Like, I want a lot more rings. But for all I can say to those who fall into that category, and if your parents were here If you fall into this situation, they probably wouldn't like me very much. But fuck them. I'm serious. If you want to pursue X, right? And your parents have their dream in their mind of what they want you to do, that is not their life. This is your life. You live it, you got one shot on this planet. One. Do what you love, aim fucking high, because it's way better to aim high and miss than to aim to the fucking ground and hit it bullseye. Do what you want to do, aim high, and have no regrets. Cool? Thank you guys.